Now it's time for an exercise. Download the attached starter notebook and try to solve it by yourself. I have also attached the solutions notebook. If you get stuck, check just that part of the solution from the solutions notebook or from this video and continue. At the end, come here and see my solution. Now let's pause the video and begin. Hello, let's solve the functions exercise. It says define a function that prints hello and call it. Def hello will be the name of the function. This can be anything you want. And we are going to print hello. And at the end, we need to call the function by writing its name and the parentheses. If I run this, I am going to get hello from here. Okay, define a function that takes a name as argument and greets that name and call it. Okay, let's define it, and the function name will be greet and name will be the parameter. Okay, we are going to print an f string in here. F will start with hello and the name will be in here, hello name and the exclamation mark. Let's call this function greet and the name will be, let's say, George. If I run this, I'm going to get hello George. Okay, define a function that greets someone and then introduces you. It will take two arguments. Okay, let's call it greet again, and it's going to take your name and also my name. Okay, after that we are going to print another f string, and this will be hello and your name in braces, your name, and my name is, this will be my name. Okay, now let's call this greet, and let's say your name is Mary and my name is John. Run this and we'll get hello Mary, my name is John. Define a function to print the best programming language, make it Python by default, and call it with other languages you want. Let's do this. Def language. Okay, this is going to be lang is equal to Python. Let's make it a string. Okay, by default, this is the default argument, and we are going to print an f string again. Let's say lang is the best. Okay, if I call this language function without any arguments, I'm going to get Python is the best. But if I write anything else in here as Java, it will use the argument that we write in here instead of the default value, and it's going to print Java is the best. Okay, define a function that returns the square of a number. Def square will be taking an argument as, let's say, x, and it's going to return x to the second power. If I write square in here and put 4 in it and run this, I'm going to get 16. If you are using a code editor, this is not going to show the result. You need to put it in a print function, but in Jupyter Notebook you can see the result of this function call. Okay, define a function that multiplies three numbers. So this will take three arguments, right? Let's say def multiply, and the parameters will be x, y, and z. And we are going to return x times y times z. Okay, let's call it multiply, and let's write 3, 5, and 10. If I run this, I'm going to get the multiplication of those three numbers. Okay. Define a function that takes a list as argument and sums the numbers in this list. Let's do this. Def sum, and this will take a number list as an argument, and after that we need to create a result variable in here, and this will be equal to 0 at the beginning, right? So we need to start a loop for number in numList. Okay, and the results will be equal to plus equals number, right? And at the end we are going to return the results like this. And if I create my list as, let's say, 3, 5, 7 and 9, and if I call sum in here and put my list in it as the num list, and if I run this, I'm going to get the summation of those 4 numbers in this list. Okay, define a function that multiplies any number of numbers. So we are going to use single asterisk arguments in here. Def multiply and single asterisk and numbers will be in here. As I said in the function section, you can write anything you want in here. You don't have to write args after those single asterisks. The important thing is that you are using a single asterisk in here and you can write anything you want after that. I'm going to define result and assign 1 to it. So operations like this, when you are doing summation, the result will be equal to 0 at the beginning. But for multiplication, it will be equal to 1, because if you start it from 0, after you multiply it with the other numbers, the result will always be 0. So we are using 1 as the starting result. Okay. Loop will be like this for number in numbers. Okay, we are going to loop through this numbers list. This is going to actually treat it as a tuple, but the usage is the same with the lists. Okay, now results multiply equals number. Okay, this is going to multiply all the numbers with each other, and after that we are going to return the result. Let's call it multiply and write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, if I run this, I'm going to get 120, which is the multiplication of those 5 numbers. Define a function that takes any number of your features and prints them. We are going to use keyword arguments for this. Why? Because it says any number of your features. This is the key point in here. Okay, let's say def introduce. This will be the name of the function, double asterisks, and after that, let's write features. Okay. For key and value in features dot items, we can call items on it because it is going to be treated as a dictionary, and we are going to get key value pairs out of this one, and they are going to be assigned to those keys and values for this loop. Let's print a simple f string, which is going to be key and value. Okay, now let's call this function. I will write introduce. Okay, let's write name is equal to John and age is equal to 35. Okay, if I run this, I will get a error. Why is that? Because dictionary object has no attribute item. We forgot to put s at the end of this. Let's run this one more time. Okay, we get name John, age is equal to 35, and since we are using keyword arguments, we can add something after that. Job will be, say, realtor, and married is equal to false. Let's say it is equal to 180 centimeters, and the weight is equal to 85 kilograms. If I run this, I'm going to get all the values because I'm using keyword arguments, and you can write any number of items you want, and it will be adapted to the things you write in the while you are calling the function. Okay. Define a variable and print it from inside of a function. X is equal to 10 and def function, and inside of this function I'm going to print X. If I call it or call the function at the end, I'm going to get 10 from here because this is a global variable and it can be accessed from inside of those functions. Okay, now let's define a variable inside of a function. Call the function first, try to print the variable outside of the function. Okay, def function, and let's say y is equal to 10 this time. After that I'm going to write function in here to call it, and let's first run this one. It's not going to do anything because we don't have any print statement or any return statements in here. If I try to print y from the outside of the function, I'm going to get an error. It says name y is not defined. It is actually defined, but it is defined in this function, so it is not accessible from here outside of the function. Let's comment this out. So this is not working, right? Add something to this code to fix the issue. Let's copy this and paste it in here. What can we do? Let's call this z this time. Okay, and here I'm going to write global z, just this expression, and if I call this time this print statement, I'm not going to get an error because this is z is a global variable now, so it is accessible from anywhere in this code. Okay, create a lambda expression to take the square of a number, assign it to a variable, and call the variable. Lambda expression will be like this. Lambda argument will be x and it will return x squared, right? Let's assign this to a variable, and the variable that we assign this will be another function. Okay, and after that we can call this variable because it's a function now. If I put 2 in here and run this, I'm going to get 4, which is the square of 4. Okay, now let's do the same thing to convert a string to a title. A title, by title it means the first characters of every word will be uppercase. Let's do this. Make title. This will be the name of the function that we are going to get when we assign a lambda expression to it. Lambda my string. Okay, this will be the argument, and it's going to return the title version of it. My string dot title. If we call this method in here, and this is going to take this argument and it will return a title version of it. Make title, let's call this function make title, and put Python basics tutorial in here. Okay, and if I run this, I'm going to get it in a title form. Okay, use map function with a lambda expression to divide every item in above list by 5. Result should be an integer, and assign result to another variable and call it. Let's do this. Let's say divided list is equal to first the map function, and I'm going to write lambda x, and since it is going to be an integer, I'm going to divide it with floor division, x divided by 5. Okay, and I'm going to put my list in here. This is my list here. Okay, after that let's call this divided list and run this. I'm not going to get a list from here. I will get a map object, and here if you cannot see the result when you call the variable, let's do this variable. Okay, add something else to your code above and convert the result to a list. Let's take this, copy and paste it in here, and I'm going to take this in a list function. If I run this, I'm going to get the correct list that I want to get from here, but there is something wrong. This is not using my list in here. Did I define another list as my list? Let's see. Yes, this here is the list. So I need to call this in here, and after that if I call this, we will get the same result, but with this one I'm going to get the items divided by 5. Okay, let's use filter function with a lambda expression to obtain a list of numbers divisible by 10 from my list. Okay, let's do this. This will be divisible list. Okay, this will be equal to filter, and I'm going to write lambda expression lambda x, and this will be x modulus 10 is equal to 0. This is going to return true or false if it, according to the number, if it is divisible by 10 or not. After that I will put to my list in here. Okay, let's call divisible list, but this time let's take it in a list function from the beginning. Okay, list. Let's run this and we will get all the numbers from this list that are divisible by 10. Okay. Write a function that returns the maximum number in a list. Def find maximum, and it will take a list of numbers as an argument. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to do is to create a maximum numbers variable, maximum number variable, and assign it the first element of this list by calling index 0. Okay, now I will start a loop for number in my list. Okay, and for every item in this list I'm going to check that if the item is greater than the maximum number. If it is, the maximum number's new value will be assigned as the number. So when we get to the end of the list, we will have the greatest numbers value in this maximum number variable. Okay, we could also start this iteration from the second element of this list, because we have already used the first element by assigning it to the maximum number. But I want to do this because it will make no difference, because we are checking if the number is greater than the maximum number, and they are the same. Okay, maximum number, and the maximum number will be equal to this number because it is greater than the maximum, so it is the new maximum. Okay, at the end of this loop I'm going to return the maximum number. Okay, let's call this function. I'm going to copy and paste here, and if I run this, you'll get 22, which is the maximum number in this list. Okay, now write a function that returns the list of factors of a given number. There are a lot of ways to do this, but let's make it as simple as possible. I will write def find factors, and this will take a number as an argument. Okay, and after that, since we are going to return a list, I am going to create an empty list at the beginning. Okay, factors will be an empty list, brackets. Okay, now I'm going to start a loop, and I'm going to use a range function for I in range, and it will be starting from 1, and it will end at this number. So since this is exclusive, I'm going to write number plus 1. Okay, after that, let's not forget the column in here. I'm going to check if number modulus I is equal to 0. This will mean that the number is divisible by this I in this range function. So it is going to be added to the factors list that we have defined at the beginning, factors.append I. Okay, and at the end of this loop, after we get out of it, we are going to return this lists, which we called factors. Let's call this function find factors. If I write 6 in here and run this, I'm going to get the factors of 6, and we can do this with any other number. Let's run this, we will get the factors of those numbers. Okay, now let's write a function that takes an element and a list as arguments and returns the number of occurrences of the element in this list. This will be very simple. Let's define occurrences, and I'm going to put a list as my list, and my element as the variables in here. This is going to be a list, and this is going to be an integer, or any element is in a list. Okay, and after that I will create a counter in here, and the counter will be starting from 0. I'm going to create a loop now for elements in my list. Okay, so whenever I get my element in this list, I'm going to increase this counter by 1, and at the end this will give us the number of occurrences. Okay, if elements, which is this one in the in my list, and I'm going to compare it with the element that I have given as an argument in here. If it is equal to my element, okay, I'm going to increase this counter by 1. Okay, and at the end let's return counter. Okay, this is all. Now we are going to call this function with a list and an element. Let's copy and paste it in here. This is the list, and the element is 4, so it will count how many times is this 4 in this list. Okay, let's run this. We are going to get 4, and as you see, 3 of them are in here and 1 of them is here. Okay, now let's write a function that sorts a list of numbers. This will be more complicated than the others because we are going to use nested for loops inside of a function. Let me copy and paste the code that I wrote for this. Okay, now we are going to inspect it. This is the bubble sort algorithm, and let me run this. This is the output we get from here because I'm using a print statement to check what are we doing in all steps. Okay, now let's inspect this code. Here is the numbers list, and here is the function called sort numbers, and it is taking a list as the argument. And the first thing it does is to take the length of the numbers list that we have put inside of the function as an argument. What is this loop basically doing is that the outer loop is going to be going to run for n times, and each time it's going to find the largest elements in the unsorted part of the list, and it is going to get it to its correct position in the list. And this inner loop uh, will run from the beginning of the list to the n minus I minus first index of it, and after that it's going to compare all the elements with their adjacent elements, and if the number at left is larger than the number at right, it's going to swap their positions, and it's going to print the list after that. We are using n minus I minus 1 as the upper limit of this range function of this inner loop. And when we do this, every time this outer loop loops through, since I is increasing by 1, this upper limit is decreased by 1, and there is a reason for that. Let me show it to you on the output. This is the output of the first iteration of the outer loop. And as you see, it got 90 at the end of this list after that. And this will be the same for the second iteration of the outer loop. At the end, 81 will be at the end of the list. And for the third one, 68 will be at the end of the list also. So the end of the list will already be sorted, okay? And you don't need to look at the end of the list anymore. When you get to the next iteration, you just need to look at the beginning of the list to find the to find the greatest element and put it at its right position. Okay, now let's see what is going on in here step by step. So at the beginning, when I is equal to 0 and j is equal to 0, this is for all I is equal to 0. So we are going to look at j. This is the list at the beginning, right? And uh, with this if statement with j is equal to 0, it's going to compare those two values with this expression, and look at if this is larger than this one. So it's not going to get into this if statement. It's going to print the same list directly, and here is the result of it. After that, j will be 1, and it's going to look for index 1 and index 2. it's going to compare them. So this left one is larger than the right one. It's going to swap their values and we will get like this. We'll get this one. After that, the same thing will be with 0, swap them, and with 3, we'll swap them. With 45, it's swap them. With 11, it's going to swap them, and we will get to this point. Okay, now it's going to compare those two values, and since 68 is larger than 54, it's not going to get into this if statement. So it's going to print the list in the same way. Okay, after that, the j will be increased by 1 and it will start to look for 68. Okay, it's going to look for those two values and swap them, and after that it will look for those two values, and since 68 is not larger than 90, it will not get into this if statement. It's going to print the same list again, and after that it is going to look for 90 with 81. It will swap them, and at the end it's going to swap 2 with 90, and this will be the end of the first iteration of the outer loop. We got the largest number at the end of this list. This will go on like this until you get all the items are sorted. We are using -1 here, by the way, and the reason is that in this part we are looking at the element at index j and also element at index j plus 1. So for example, when you are in here, you are also looking at the element at the right of it, which is the last element of the list. So this is why we are cutting it from the -1. We are already checking the last element of the list in this expression. Okay, this may be a little confusing for you right now. I am aware of that. It's very normal, but I wanted to show you the bubble sort algorithm. You can always search for it on the internet and understand it better. Okay, this was all for this exercise.